recently formed a partnership with IMCP, and the reason why I'm super excited about this partnership is it brings together the amazing stuff that we've done within Microsoft Woman and Partner and the connected community that we have, and it connects us with this broader organization which provides us with the ability to go global, to connect with a lot more of our partner ecosystem, to think about how we can do more events to really support and sponsor our women in our community. And so I'm really excited about the partnership. This is one of our first inaugural calls within our new partner world that we have going. And, I'm super, super pleased, like I say, to see where it's going to lead. We had an amazing joint event at Inspire Together, and it was the first time that we'd really done some activity as a partnership. We had the Be Bold luncheon, which if any of you attended was just outstanding. We had super speakers. I loved it. There was some mentoring circle sessions. We had our Woman of Inspiration Awards, and you can see Lindsay, Linda, Christine, and Chitra, our award winners. I wanted to create an award program where we could really support and recognize the women who have made some influence in our community. And so that was our first award session. We also had a booth, which we assisted the IMC team with. We were encouraged to recruit some more members. In addition, we had the Male Perspective panel, which was really insightful and thought-provoking. And so Inspire 2017 was great. I'm looking forward to seeing how we can do even more next year. And so with that, I would really like to welcome Maya Beck, our speaker for today. She's an author and founder and coach thinking about transformational leadership. And I'm really, really encouraged that we have such strong speakers joining our panel who are going to really get us to think a little bit differently, push us a little out of our comfort zone, and look at what we have next moving forward. And so I'd like to hand over to Mia. Are you there?
Hi, sorry, yes. Hi, this is Sarah Gardeback. I thought I'd just add a little bit before I let Mia start. So I work at Microsoft. I'm a director at Microsoft, and a couple of years ago, I had a work situation which I call like a perfect storm, where I felt like I just kept working and working and working, and I couldn't say no, and I had a situation where I didn't feel like I was moving forward, kind of moving backwards, and I had a hard time managing my career and home life. And what I did was I found Mia, and she coached me. She helped me. She gave me methods and tools to manage both primarily my work life, my interactions with my coworkers and managers, but also how to approach my work in a better way that made me feel more accomplished and just got me out of that storm and made me feel more in control. So I'm very happy to have Mia here today, and I'll let her introduce herself a little bit more, but great to have you here, Mia.
Thank you so much. When Sarah asked me to come and talk about my life as an author and also my transition from being an executive in the corporate world to becoming an entrepreneur, my own boss, and setting my own pace, I was really honored. But there are, like Sarah said, there's a whole toolbox of things that I talk with women about, men too. But I'm going to focus on a few today. I know we said 5 in the paper, but I really want to focus on 3. And it's because I think when we master few, but the important parts of this toolbox, you can change your life from being maybe a little bit dramatic, a little bit full of conflict, to having this balance and harmony. And that's really what I want to give to you. And so we're going to talk about 3 things that are game changers. And it has been in my life. And I'm going to give you a little bit of my background. I'm originally from Denmark, which is the north of Germany, for those of you who don't have the best geography. I'm not very good at geography, so I always try to explain. But Denmark is in Scandinavia. And I was in the event business, so I would be a project manager, later a conference manager. And my job would be to have these amazing big events. So I have hosted UN summits and MTV awards, and I've met presidents, kings, queens, and even Obama and Oprah a few times. So a very glamorous life in many ways. But then 6 years ago, my husband came home one day. He works for Microsoft, and he said, well, honey, I know this is bad timing, but they really want me to move to Seattle. And he said in the same sentence, but I guess we can't do that because of your job. Because I had just taken on probably the biggest job within my industry, had just hired my team. We had opened a big hotel, and now he wanted to move. And I just remember saying, you know what? I can have a job anywhere in the world. If this is what you want to do, I'm game. So we went, and we now live here in Seattle. We had never been to the USA, but we just sold everything and went for it. And I'm really happy we did, because it gave me a chance to, for once in my lifetime, I didn't have to pay the bill. So I really had the opportunity to ask myself the question, what would I do if I didn't have to make money? And I wish everybody could ask themselves that question. What came up for me was coaching. I looked at my job, I looked at how I loved it, and the part I loved the most, without doubt, was my employees, making them shine. I had already had so many great experiences meeting, amazing people, but I loved seeing my employees grow. And so it was really a no-brainer that I got certified as a coach, and I started working with people and making their lives much smoother, much nicer. And in the process, of course, I discovered a work-life balance that I had never known, because I was still working a lot of hours, but now I was doing it in my design, and it has completely transformed my life. And I want to say to those of you who might think that when I'm an author that I write self-help books for business women, I don't. I actually do write I think it's a type of self-help books, but it's fiction. And I sprinkle it with romance and very entertaining books. But there is a lot of wisdom and psychology in those books. And so you're not going to get a self-help, this is how to manage your boss or something from me. Okay? But let's start with the first game changer. So if you change the slide.
Yep.
So one of the things that is really, really hard for many, many people, but it's profound, is to set your boundaries. And you've heard this a million times. And the reason you have heard it a million times is that the people who master this will tell you it was a complete game changer in their lives. And again, so my life philosophy is you learn, you practice, and you teach. So I'm going to talk to you in a way that is so simplified. This is a very complicated matter, but I want to simplify it so that you can explain it to your children. Because we have all been conditioned, especially women, to be people pleasers, good girls. And if you can help your children start to set boundaries in an early age, they are already ahead of the game. And the way I want you to explain it to them is this. Don't be sweet, be kind. And you may be thinking, what's the difference? But there's a huge difference. Let's take an example. A really sweet person is almost like an addict for this immediate gratification of, oh my God, thank you so much. We love to make people happy. We love to say yes, because there's a reward in it. But we pay a heavy price when we accept and say yes to things that we don't really mean. So this is about integrity. It's about your authentic self. Setting your boundaries, meaning saying yes when you mean yes and no when you mean no. So don't say yes to baking a cake if you're on a diet and you don't really have the time to bake that stupid cake, and now you're in the kitchen and you're bitching about it, and your husband says, well, why don't we just swing by Fred Meyer and buy one? And you get, you shoot him daggers with your eyes because he doesn't get it, right? And then you turn up with the cake and your friend says, oh my God, it's beautiful. It looks delicious. Did it take you long? And you go waving your hand and you say, no, it wasn't a trouble at all. So that's being sweet. But it's not being very kind, because there was that bitterness to it when you were actually doing it. And we know it in many, many situations where being sweet has a price, because now you promise too much and you can't deliver, or the quality of what you deliver, it's not going to fulfill you. You feel that it's not enough and you're not enough. So being kind is a whole different story. So I practice being kind enough to say, sorry, that's not going to work for me, but how about this, right? So instead of saying yes to baking that cake or doing the assignment, you set your boundaries and you say only yes to what you can and no to what you can't do. If you want any chance of a management position or a promotion, you need to be really, really skilled at this. Why? Because you might think that your boss wants you to say yes to everything, but he doesn't, or she doesn't. They want to be able to trust that when you say yes, you can deliver, right? So you can't say yes to something if you don't have the time or you don't have the resources. And the sooner you get this, the more trustworthy you're going to be, the more integrity people are going to see in you, and the more they can navigate around you. So you really, really have to practice this and have to teach your children how to practice this if they want to have a chance at a management position. If you look at management in general, they are really good at saying yes and no. They have to be. So if this is something you're struggling with, be better at it. And a lot of you will say, well, you know what? I got this completely down. I'm really good at it. But then I want to challenge you. Are you good at it at home too? And I'm not talking about setting boundaries like, don't talk to me that way. You're grounded. If that's how you solve problems with your children, then you're not setting boundaries in a good way. There are better ways of doing it. And so let's talk about how we set those boundaries, right? Because I'm not going to leave you hanging here today. A lot of people have told you to set your boundaries, but I truly believe that if you knew how to, you would. So let's talk about how we do it. So if you take the next slide, Sarah.
Yep.
So I think that one of the most powerful tools that I can give you is a delayed response. Many of us make decisions that are not thought through, and they are snap decisions. Again, because we are so conditioned that we want to say yes. So we say yes, and then afterwards we're thinking, oh my God, how am I even going to get time to do that? Or why did I say yes to that when in reality I don't want to do it? So take the privilege of taking your time, and this is how it looks. If we look at your home life first, you come home and you've had a hard, long day at work, and there's some sort of conflict with your child. And either they throw a tantrum or they're disrespectful, and it just spirals into this conflict where you're shouting, and this happens, you're shouting, don't you shout at me, right? Because you're such a great role model. No, this happens to most parents. So use the delayed response. Don't, keep calm and say something else. You can say, when you're calm and you can talk in a calm voice like me, we can discuss this, but I can't hear any of your words when you're shouting. But I want you to know this. You being so disrespectful is going to have a consequence. And I'll think about what it's going to be and I'll get back to you. Or you can even say, I'll discuss it with your father and we'll get back to you. Now, your child may be, throwing a bigger fit and go, I hate your mom, and you're just going to take my computer and you're just going to ground me. But don't take the bait. Delayed response. Let them stew. Just go, yeah, it will have a consequence, but I will let you know what it is. And then you can get back to them later that evening when everyone is calm and you can talk about it. But you are not obligated to come up with some sort of best creative solution right then and there. You have that tool to just let me think about it. Now, if we talk about your professional life, let's say your boss walks up to you and he wants you to do something. He doesn't maybe have the full overview of your calendar, right? So he's not understanding that by asking you to do this by this time, you would actually have to, throw everything and just work on that. And by doing that, you're letting other people down that won't get what they need from you. So a delayed response is a very powerful tool to say, okay, I hear you. Let me think about or let me get back to you in a few minutes. I just have to check my calendar, and then we can, talk about expectations. And then you can tell him, I'm happy to do this. I would have to lay down everything else, and that means I wouldn't get this and this and this done. Is that okay? Because then we can prioritize this. But don't expect people to be happy just because you said yes. They won't be happy if you don't deliver. And they certainly won't be happy when someone knocks on their door and says, we were expecting this from Luis or whoever, and now it's not done. And then he asks you, why isn't it done? And you say, because you asked me to do this other thing. You made a snap decision and you didn't think it through and you didn't inform him. So it goes in every area of your life, really. Use delayed response. And another thing I want to point out is if you are like most other women, conditioned to be that people-pleasing person who really enjoy the gratification of saying yes, then it's going to be extremely uncomfortable for you to say no. But this is something you have to practice. And saying no is going to be out of your comfort zone for a while, but not forever. It's something that you expand. And I want you to use this tool. When you feel the next time you have to say no, and in any area of your life, and you have that, oh my God, I don't like it, I'm uncomfortable, tell yourself that is okay. That is freaking awesome, in fact, because that is a sign that you are growing. You wouldn't be uncomfortable if you were inside your comfort zone. And I'll give you an example. I have a 13-year-old girl, and she's a basketball fanatic, and she really wants to get better. She just started last year. And so she came up with this plan, which was pretty ambitious this summer. But she had spotted that down at YMCA, there were a group of high school boys and college boys playing. And she figured, if I could play with them, I would learn a ton. But being 13, I don't know if you remember when you were 13, but we mostly move in packs because we need the reinforcement from our friends. And so she didn't have that. So she had to put on her big girl pants and she went over and she was terrified. And she still, she told herself, like her mom had told him, it's okay, it's awesome, it's freaking awesome. And she walks up to this big group of boys or young men, and she asked them, hey, can I join you guys? And they said yes. So she played 3 hours with these huge, big boys who play at a much higher level, and they're super fast. And she was laughing when I picked up. She was high on energy. She was high on this victory of being included when she could have been rejected. And I said, weren't you afraid? And she said, I was terrified, Mom. But I kept saying to myself, what do I have to lose? And that's a really brilliant way of looking at life, because then you will achieve major things. And of course, she was wet. And she said, it's so gross, Mom. It's their sweat. It's not mine. But she's a really good example of what we can, anyone you want to approach. And we don't often do it because we feel the fear of rejection. But I can tell you from my own life, I have readers around the world. I sell, hundreds of books every day. And they write to me with questions. And they get super, super excited that I take time to answer them in person. But why wouldn't I? And I've never had the experience. And I've worked with celebrities and really high-ranking people. I've never had the experience of them saying, maybe they don't have time right now, but they will be happy to answer a question or help you in any way they can, if they're decent people at least, right? So putting that, sweet girl aside and being a kind person is really, really important. And to use that tool of push through whenever you feel a limit, because it will expand your comfort zone. Right? Okay, so let's take the next slide, because there's another really key important part. And this is a good thing, but we're not very good at it often. So in general, if you're like most other women, you run the project manager of the family. And by that I mean you have the schedule in your head that the kids need a dentist appointment, and maybe your husband has to have a haircut, and you've got everybody lined up in your head. And maybe if you are also struggling with a parent who needs you to help out with practical matters, you're going to be in the most stressed demography of USA. So this is a really critical part of your new life, of your balance. take time to relax. And even if you do it now, be better at it, because it's not okay to be in a shower or in a bath and enjoy and say, I am relaxing, but then you are actually going over your agenda and your to-do lists, or lying restless at night and thinking about everybody else. If you really want to do them a favor and you want to be, doing good for others, then you start bringing balance into your life. When you relax with a good conscience. Because one, you deserve it, and two, you need to set a role model example so that you show your kids what it looks like to have balance, because nobody wants you to work yourself to death. And you're going to be a bitter, unpleasant, probably a little bit aggressive person if you don't learn to set yourself first. So there are plenty of ways of doing it. Nature is very important, because there is a whole different level of energy when you walk into a forest. And if you live in an area like the Northwest, you have no excuse not to get out in nature sometimes, because it's so easy. We have it everywhere. And when I was coaching Sarah, what we would do walk and talks, remember? Yep. So I don't actually, it's very rare for me to coach anyone in an office. I would love to take them out in nature and do a walk and talk. That's how I operate, and that's how I've designed my life. So I can bring my dog and we can go, and it's informal, and we just get some very profound conversations. So if you have friends that you don't see often enough, try to combine it. Make an accountability partner. Get up a little early and go walk with your husband or your kids, or do it in the night. But it's really important that you prioritize that part of your life if you want to be a good manager, if you want to be a good anything, really, because you are not going to help anyone unless you put yourself first. I had a conversation with my kids, actually, but I have two daughters, one who's 10 and one who's 13. And of course, they've got this idea that work life is something you can design, which I think the new generation is going to look at more than we did. Because they see me working from home and having time to go and be with them and do walks, and you can too. But it's all about setting yourself first and not feeling guilty. Because here's what happens, and I saw this with you, Sarah, and I saw it with myself. Women tend to, when we get pressured and when we are stressed, we will take away from ourselves before we will take away from others. So the first place is we stop maybe exercising, and we stop sleeping as much as we should. We don't get the meditation that we used to do. We don't necessarily see the friends that we would love to see. We try to find time in places that won't affect our children, our husband, or our workplace. And we're doing ourselves a disfavor, or is that even a word? But, we are being bad role models. And this has to change, because what happens is you're going to end up this drained, bitter person who's going to feel overwhelmed, and nobody wants that. So these are the three things that I want you to focus on. I want you to focus on setting your boundaries, and that is connected to relaxing. So when you have your feet up and you have a book in your hand and your kid comes and asks you for something, tell them they have a dad, or tell them they have feet and hands and they can go. And don't think for a second that if you didn't tell your kids to brush their teeth and play the violin and do their homework, nothing would get done. I used to think that. And then I stopped. And you know what happened? My kids suddenly took over. My husband took over. And I'm not the project manager of them anymore. So instead of the scenario of racing around the house and telling your kids they have to get ready because you have to take them to sports, basketball, or whatever. And this is, of course, depending on age. But make it into, if you need a ride, I need to know when you need a ride, and you need to come and tell me when you're ready. Then I'll take you. That's how it works for us. And it can work in other women that I've coached. And so if you can step out of that project manager role, and this is a long discussion, of course, and there are many, many tools to use to do that, you're going to have that time to focus on you. And they're going to see a mom who is smiling, who is happy, who has a husband who's happy because she has, that mental energy and the loving nature that is really you. So I cannot stress out enough, relax without guilt, because it is not relaxing to watch, endless soaps and still be thinking about, oh my God, I should be doing this, or I ought to. And no, relax and know that this is on my agenda, because when I do this, I become a better person. And when I become a better person with more energy, I can actually inspire others and be my best myself. Okay. So the most important part for me today is going to be your questions. So if you have any questions, I want you to just shoot them. Sarah will look at them and she will tell me, because it is, I've learned somewhere, I've heard somewhere that curious people live longer. And again, my philosophy is we learn from people, and then we practice what we have learned if it resonates with us, and then we teach it to others, right? So that's what we want to do today. I want to get to what you are struggling with and what you would like to have a second opinion about, or maybe just a different perspective. So anything you want to ask, just write it.
Or say it.
Or say it, if you can. Okay, maybe we can get to the next slide. Yeah.
There we go.
There we go. And while we, you can read that out, maybe.
Yeah.
You can read it out.
Okay, so I'll start with Kathy here. So what you're suggesting makes sense, but requires a ton of small changes. What one thing would you recommend we do today?
Today, I would like to challenge you to take up meditation. I can't explain exactly what it does, but there's a magic in it. And maybe I want you to think of it this way. You take 20 minutes a day, you find an app, and you do meditation. This is going to be a bubble that you create around yourself. And again, this is you investing in you. Einstein didn't come up with the relativity theory when he was working. He came up with it while playing the violin. And the guy who discovered gravity or defined gravity, he was lying under an apple tree. So I want you to really accept that some of the best ideas you're going to have while being completely relaxed and doing something other than work. And for me, I get some of my best ideas when I do other than writing. And so I meditate 20 minutes a day. It is a sacred moment. If my kids walk in and they see me with my headset on, they tiptoe back. And that's a boundary I've set, because I get really, really uncomfortable when I get mad at them if they disturb me. This is my time, 20 minutes. Nothing is that, unless the house is on fire, nothing is that important that they can't cope themselves. So those 20 minutes, I would challenge you to do that, because if you think of your mind like a pond, and it's almost like there's a storm going on, and the pond is just dirt is whelming up, and so the water is muddy, and you can't really see clear. In my experience, when you start meditating, you're like calming down the storm of thoughts, and so the mud just falls to the bottom, and suddenly you have this clear view. And you have a very, almost like a mirror surface, so you can see exactly what's going on and who's in your life and what's their role, and you can navigate more easily. That's, I think, one of the best ways of explaining why I think meditation is such a huge favor to yourself.
And then that will help you to set the boundaries and,
yes.
and think about how to relax and all of that as well.
Yes. I can see, my husband is with Microsoft, and there are days when he comes home and he's super stressed, and it affects everyone around us, or around him, really, right? The energy. And so by now, we all know that we're not going to let him ruin our energy. We're going to play the song we were playing on the radio, which is our frequency, and not adapt to his heavy music, like he comes in as this radio station, just boo. But we are not going to change into his station. And one of the things that we do for him is say, take a minute. What do you need? Do you need a hug? Do you need a time to meditate? Do you need something? So he will pull back. And then he comes back half an hour later after meditating, whatever, walking, maybe he runs or something. And he's just a completely different person, right? So there is a power in taking that bubble time, prioritizing it. And for me, I don't know how, I can't explain this. There's more between, but when I meditate, when I don't, things start to get a little bit more difficult. Then I start it up and boom, I have a spike in my sales of books. I have, an agent approaching me, or something always happens. It's just like I'm connecting something. I don't know. I can't, but it's
focused.
Yeah, there's something that I'm.
So start with meditation, and then see what comes out of that, and then
20 minutes.
Yeah.
And there are tons of apps you can download on your phone, but this is an empowerment of you.
Another interesting question here as well, do people adjust to stop being an overachiever? And I know we've talked about that too, and I'd love for you to kind of talk around that too, that you will get a reaction. I got a reaction, started saying no.
Yeah.
And you kind of coach me through that. So if you can talk a little bit about how do you handle those people around you when you stop being the yes person, or you stop being the person that wants to please and be the sweet person?
Well, first of all, I want you to see it as a good sign that they react to it, because that means you are making different choices. And here's the thing, when you start saying no, some people aren't going to like it, some people are going to love it, because it's much easier to navigate around you, and they respect you more. And those people are the people you need in your life. The people who only need you to say yes, if it's friends, you don't need that. And if it's a boss, then he needs to adjust his expectations too, because he doesn't want you to say yes. Then he's not a very clever person. He wants you to say yes when you can deliver. And so what you need to remember is their reaction is all about them. It's not about you. And it's the same with your kids. If they're used to you saying, sure, I can drive you all around, and sure, you can have, and this and that, and you start saying, you know what, no, that's not going to work for me, or I would rather that we did it at this time, and setting those boundaries, they're going to react. They're going to push at you, because it's inconvenient that you suddenly not the yay sayer. And that's okay. In fact, it's a really good thing, because then you're doing the right thing. And they are allowed to have their reactions. They are allowed to have their emotions, as long as they don't treat you disrespectful, because then again, you have to set a boundary and say, I would never speak to you that way. I don't see that's not necessary. But really practice this, and you will see that the people who are suddenly paying attention to you are people who have maybe disregarded you because you were just, a people pleaser. And there are people who think less of, because I can't really take you seriously. You just always say yes. And I don't trust, especially in private settings. Again, I'll give you an example from my kids, because I want you to teach this to your kids. So my 10-year-old had a friend over, and they were sitting on the staircase, and they were basically gossiping about another friend, or my daughter's friend was gossiping about a common friend of theirs. So I overhear my 13-year-old get up, walk out, and say to her sister, you know what? I want you to know this. If she speaks that way about you, you can be damn sure she's going to speak that way about, if she speaks that way about your friend, you can be damn sure she's going to speak that way about you. And it was a teaching moment for both those 10-year-old girls, because my daughter got extremely upset with her sister. It was embarrassing to her. But it is one of those things that show you that people of a certain quality will look at you if you are bitchy, and you get sour and bitter when you are sweet and say yes to things you really didn't mean to say yes to, because you feel exploited, and you feel not appreciated, and that spills over in comments about it. But when I look at people and they speak about others in a bad manner, I always have this in the back of my mind, sorry, not my kind of person, because how can I trust you? If that's how you operate, if that's how you speak about others, I believe in this strong sister solidarity thing. So it's not my style. And so if you want to attract really, really quality people who have a different standard, you need to set those boundaries and have full integrity, and have your yes when you mean yes, no when you mean no, because you're authentic, and authentic people are attracted to other authentic people. So I hope this empowers you to just say, but you call yourself an overachiever. And again, don't be confused that saying yes is overachieving, because you're going to end up disappointing a lot of people. And they're going to have, they might not tell you, but they're going to have this, she just says yes, but it's just talk. She can't deliver. And that's the worst anyone would say about, I don't know about you, but about me. I would hate that. So you can be an overachiever, but I would much rather be, an underachiever with integrity who delivers what I say I can deliver. Well, that's just my opinion.
And I think also going back to your setting boundaries and integrity, and something that we also talked about is about when you have people around you that are behaving in a way you don't like, which happens. It can happen in a work situation, it can happen at home, and not take that to you. Instead, try to take a step back and think, okay, the way this person acted in this meeting or the way they acted to me, that made me feel this way. That tells me that I should not act this way. Instead of I'm trying to say, instead of taking it in, like you taught me, instead of taking it in and thinking, oh God, what an awful situation, taking a step back and thinking that is that person who's having a bad day
and that's the thing, and again, we put so many labels on people so fast, right? And so you walk into a room and you make it all about yourself by sitting there and internalizing, oh my God, he's not talking, he's ignoring me. Okay, he doesn't, now he's paying attention to that person. And it's this constant thing going on in your mind, which has, if you really ask those people, it was probably never about you in the first place. I'm not saying don't use your intuition, because suddenly, certainly there are situations where you're spot on. But it's about them anyway, and they can be threatened by you. They can be jealous of you for reasons you don't even know. I had a situation when I was in the corporate world with a colleague who was just plain out mean to me, and it just went on for I think years. I mean, and she was a bully, But at that point, I just kept my calmness, and then I got pregnant, and you get emotional when you're pregnant. So at that point, I remember we were sitting across each other. She's talking to someone on the phone. She was pregnant too, and she says, "No, I didn't gain much weight, but Mia, I mean, she looks like a whale." Nice. And I'm sitting there thinking, she didn't just say that, and that was like, no, that's just a no. Yeah. So that was the only time when I went in and I talked to my boss about it. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this person? I've done everything I knew at this, and I wasn't a coach at that time. Now I would have known how to handle her. But she confronted this person and asked her to apologize. And so here's the interesting thing. She apologized and she tells me, I just don't like you because you make everything seem so easy. You can call up a customer and you can tell them their bill has just gone up 50%, and you can sit there and they're still laughing with you. It's just not possible, and I hate you for it. And of course that wasn't the truth at all, but it was just this jealousy that had been there from the beginning, and it was never about me. It was never about me, but you internalize it. So I want to talk about emotions, if I can just take, I don't know if we have a little bit there. Yeah. Okay, so this is an important lesson for all of us. So you know how we tend to think about emotions as either bad or good. So a good emotion would be what? It would be like joy and happiness and gratefulness, but then bad emotions would be hate and jealousy and anger and all those things, right? But that's not a good way to look at emotions. I think of emotions as your internal guidance system. So every emotion is just that. And I want you to separate emotions from behavior. So you will feel, hopefully, I hope you will feel jealous if someone flirts with your husband. And that emotion is an important message from your internal system saying, you know what? I would be bothered if he chose her over me. I would be angry if he, betrayed me, because it's a reminder that what you have is really, really important to you. And I hope you would get really angry if someone robbed you or burned your house down. You're entitled to, and you should, and it's a fuel against injustice. So emotions aren't either good or bad. there are good or bad behavior, but emotions is just emotions. So when you see someone having an emotion, allow them to have that, because you're going to use it as your GPS system. When it feels wrong, when it makes you angry, investigate what about it is it that makes me angry, because your body is trying to tell you something, and if you ignore it, you're missing out on a whole internal dialogue with your system trying to tell me something something isn't right here. And so make peace with emotions. You're not a hysterical person because you're emotional, not even when you have your PMS. Maybe then, I don't know. But anyway, with your kids too, because I've been working with a lot of people who have been, depressed, even suicidal kids. And one of the things that really pains me is when I ask them, okay, so what happens? And they explain, well, sometimes I get angry, but then I'm told that's not constructive and I shouldn't. And so they feel, they're being pushed back to this place of powerlessness. And I think it's important to understand that if you have any sort of depression or sadness, it's impossible to jump from being this feeling of powerlessness that many have to being happy. You want to be happy, you want your kids to be happy, or whoever you're concerned about, but it's not going to happen. You can't just, there's an emotional scale, like a ladder, and you just don't jump from the bottom to the top. There are many, many steps in between, and often you have to, bridge. You have to bridge by using anger so that you can get to forgiveness, so that you can get to acceptance before forgiveness. But emotions are such a misunderstood subject, I think. And it's one of the keys that always pop up when I have coaching sessions where they feel hysteric, or they feel, but I should be more constructive and I should be happy. But should is useless. What you should do, if anything, is be honest about how you feel and then explore it and dive into it, because there's a message in it for you.
It'll help you set boundaries too, probably as well.
Because because the reason you're powerless is that you're feeling, it's a feeling that you're powerless, but you're never powerless. And that's where we had some very good talks about, even if your boss is being can I say ass? If he's being really unkind to you and treating you unfairly, you still have some power. And when you take that power back and you start, coming to work with your big pants on, then your life is going to change. And I want that for you. I want for you to be in balance so that everyone, because it's going to affect everyone around you. And that's the brilliant thing about this. Yeah.
Absolutely. So any more questions, or still there? Quiet.
Well, someone wrote to you, Sarah.
Yeah,
did you see that?
Funny. With Amy. Amy and I was talking, and she was about to cancel her vacation, and I talked her out of that. And I think that's something that I don't think anyone should do, cancel a vacation. It's always good to re-energize, and you come back and you're more efficient when you're back in your role. And again, setting your boundaries and knowing what's right for you and what you need and get that relaxation and get to be who you are and be genuine.
And also, do you remember we had a conversation about how, because you and I started working in the corporate environment maybe, 20 some years, let's just say 20 years ago. And things were a little different then. You would actually have time to talk to the other departments, and maybe we, meet over the water cooler more, and there was social. And there's been a slide towards work, no fun.
Yeah.
And we isolate ourselves, and hopefully the new generation is going to change that, because it's really sad, and it's become this obsession with work that trumps everything, and it's counterproductive. It really is, because you're going to have overwhelmed, stressed employees who get sick and don't operate on their highest level. So this is something, and unfortunately, your company is not going to come and tell you, I think you should take time to just relax now. Yeah. They're going to say, when can you have this done? So this is something, again, we need to learn as women and people in general. You set your boundaries. You take care of yourself, because no one else is going to do it for you. And if you don't do it, then you're not, and you can be busy at work, for a time. If you have a good home life, you're not going to break down. But if you are very busy for a long time, it's going to affect your home life, and suddenly you are under stress or pressure both at home and at work, and that's when you get stressed. That's when you break down, and you suddenly sit there. You have everything. You have the house, the money, the husband, the kids, and you are miserable because you feel like you are butter spread too thin on a piece of toast. Yeah. You're not making anyone happy, right? And I hope, can you relate to this? If you can relate, just write, yes.
They're all in harmony.
Yeah. Oh, they're all harmonious people. I love that. Yeah. But even if there's one person who feels this resonates with me, because I can be at home, I can be in my bed, and I can think sometimes I'm the most ungrateful person in the world because I have all of this and I'm still not happy. And I want you to know that you're not alone, and there is a way to feel happy, but it's about you changing your mindset. Oh.
All right, hold on. We're reading here. How do you not care when other parties are disappointed, distant, angry, or when they escalate after we set boundaries?
Well, I never said you don't care, but you don't take it. So here's the thing. How do I explain this? I would almost call it like a spiritual or energetic hygiene. So other people will react to you, but you can't take on their anger. So it's that radio station I was talking about. You have to stay true to your radio station. You stay calm, you stay kind, and you stay courageous enough to set your boundaries. If you do that, then really it's none of your concern how they react to you. They have to grow up. They have to realize that they are talking now to a person with full integrity, who is authentic, and who will never let them down because you won't commit to something you can't deliver. If they have a tantrum, then they have something to work on. Give them my number. I'll help them. No, but honestly, you have to raise above it.
Yeah, and I can just add. That happened to me. So I had to go and say no to a person that I hadn't said no to before, and I got a reaction, right? But since we talked about this, me and I, ahead of time, that I would get a reaction, I was prepared for it. And just if you are aware that you get that reaction, at least for me, it was easier to handle it. And honestly, that person got over that. I didn't need to be the person always over-delivering, always being the first to deliver things. It was actually okay to be number second or third, and then giving myself room to be more me and have more time for myself. So I think it's also setting yourself up for, okay, there's going to be a little bit of reaction. That's okay. That person will get over it.
And again, I think it's a sign. It's a really, really, pat yourself on the shoulder, because this is you being strong. This is you saying no. And are people going to love you for it? Sometimes yes, but many times no.
Over time.
But then you look at really successful people, and you ask yourself, do they say yes to everything? No, they don't, because they only have 24 hours a day, just like you. And so the reason they are in that position is they have learned to navigate some of them would say what serves me, but I would say, what can I deliver and be proud of? So I'm not saying don't care, but don't take it personally. Look at them. I would almost say, I look at people who throw a tantrum and think, I wish, we had more time so I could help you. But I'm not going to say I'm pitying them, because that's the wrong, but I look at them with sympathy.
You take a distance.
I take a distance, but I'm empathetic, but I'm not, it's not my problem.
So we're 5 minutes left. I wanted to give you a little chance to talk about your books a little bit, because I think this is amazing. In our time, I think when did you start? So a couple of years ago, you started writing.
So what happened was I was doing all these seminars about coaching, especially, I did a lot of parenting coaching. So I would go to schools and do what your child wish you knew sessions or seminars. And we discovered that the teenagers didn't want to read the self-help books that we wanted them to read. And so my partner and I, we came up with this concept of writing books that were intriguing with drama and lots of, romance and fights and there were tons of tools in them. Mm. How do you deal with bullying? How do you deal with peer pressure, parent pressure, academic pressure, and all that? Now, from that, I discovered my love of writing. And I wanted to write books for adults. So I came up with this name, which is actually my mother's first name and my father's middle name, which is Elin. And then I created, on Monday, I published my 12th book. Yeah. And it's gone really, really fast because it's just pouring out of me. I have all these, and it's pure fiction, but I use these fictions book to dive into. Often I think what I love to explore is being the devil's advocate, right? So I always put people in a position. So there's a series, you can see the book, The Black, which is in the middle, which is a whole series taking place here in Seattle. And in every book, I place two people across each other, or opposite each other. There's a vegan versus a carnivore. and there's a scientist versus a medium. Yeah. I guess she can see dead people and he doesn't believe in that stuff. And so all the time there's this opposition where if they want to have, you can be attracted to someone you don't share values with, and that's a challenge, and that makes for good bantering and good dialogue. Mm-hmm. But it also challenges you to grow. And so every one of my characters have to go on a personal growth journey. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, and then last thing, if you're curious or you just need a book to read, you can actually visit my website. I give away 2 of my books as just an appetizer. So you can get The Accidental Slave and Black. And the good thing is Men of the North, which is the last book on the slide, it was published last month. And I was just checking this morning, and it's kind of funny because there are like 12 million books on Amazon.
Yeah.
And this book is number 500 best-selling book or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I haven't started doing any.
Congratulations.
Yeah, because I haven't started doing any marketing for it.
Yeah.
So I was a bit. I shouldn't be surprised. I can see that it's selling well, but it was just interesting. I felt really good about it.
Yeah, it's cool. I really like how you just transformed your career a couple of times and managed to be successful.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna say thank you so much, Mia, to you for being here, and I'm gonna let, I think Sarah or Jody's gonna finish the call.
Yes, this is Jody. Thank you everyone for joining us today, and thank you very much, Maya, for joining us and leading. It was a great call. We really appreciate it. We wanted to highlight the remaining webinars for our fall series. So please take a look at our lineup that we have September, October, November, and December. You can register for them all at one website. Take a look, aka MSWIP Fall 2017. This recording will be posted at the MSUS Women in Partner playlist. And all the recordings that we have done previous are also available there. Thank you again for your time, and we look very forward to the next call. Thanks, everyone.